Girls with guns. What's up with this perennial conservative fetish? Well, the superficial appeal is obvious. When I was a degenerate libertarian, this perennial conservative fetish, girls with guns, did have some appeal for me because I was interested in girls. I was interested in guns. So if you combine those, then, obviously it's more interesting. But there's a lot more going on here than just that. And I'm not just talking about the latent homosexuality, because this is kind of a gender-bending meme or a gender-bending norm. And it's a little bit, ambiguously gay, kind of like, dressing your girl up in the football helmet and pads, right? Which is another perennial conservative homoerotic fetish or fantasy. Because, the girls with guns thing, it's not the feminine ideal. The feminine ideal has to do with nurturing and fertility and caretaking and empathy and support and all those kind of feminine qualities. The girls with guns thing is kind of in opposition to that, and it is kind of a masculinization of the feminine ideal, and especially if you're idealizing it and fetishizing it, then it is a masculinization of the feminine ideal. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with girls having guns or practicing with guns or using guns or carrying guns. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just talking about what you idealize and what you celebrate and what you hold up as the ideal for masculine and feminine, and that is not the feminine ideal. So what's going on with conservatives who are supposed to have, a gendered division of roles and responsibilities? What's going on with them in this girls with guns meme? And this is, I think, a concession to feminism. Men, and particularly masculine and conservative or right-wing leaning men, do have a protective impulse as concerns women. And so this girls with guns thing, in addition to being like a little bit of a latent homoerotic thing, fantasy, fetish, whatever you want to call it, that certainly may be a component of it. It's also an expression of this protective impulse, because men want to protect women, and especially conservative men or right-leaning men want to protect women, but in a feminist society where we're not able to restrict or limit women in any meaningful way, which is necessary in order to protect them, then, one concession that seems possible is to give them a gun and encourage them and train them to use the gun, and hopefully they can protect themselves. And so that's an expression of the masculine protective impulse towards women that is at the same time a concession to and an attempted compromise with feminism. But you can't make concessions to feminism or compromise with feminism, because it never actually ends, right? They never stop demanding things. They never stop feeling less entitled. They never stop feeling entitled. They never start feeling less entitled. They never stop making demands. They never stop demanding more. And they're never going to stop in any meaningful way. So compromise is not really an option. And the ultimate ideal has to be a return to sensible sexual division of roles and responsibilities and norms and expectations, consistent with traditional notions of masculinity and femininity. And the girls with guns thing is not consistent with traditional notions of masculinity and femininity. And, there's something a little bit off, a little bit dubious about the whole thing, a little bit, latently homosexual. And so, I understand the appeal. There is a superficial appeal. There's also a deeper appeal having to do with this masculine protective impulse. And, that's a fundamentally noble and helpful instinct, but this is yet another unhelpful expression of that instinct. And, once again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with women having guns or using guns or practicing with guns or carrying guns, but that is not an ideal. In an ideal society, that shouldn't be necessary. And at best, that's only ever, making the most of a bad situation. And 120 years ago, say, this didn't really exist to a large extent. We had a much safer society where women had fewer rights and fewer opportunities, and they were limited to a larger extent. They were already starting to be freed from traditional fetters, and there was already a lot of social reform underway, even 120 years ago, and women were right on the verge of gaining the vote. But it was a much safer society. By and large, women did not have to carry guns and did not carry guns. Violent crime was much lower than it is today, and it just simply wasn't necessary. And you didn't have dysgenia driving crime trends. You didn't have mass immigration and ethnic conflict driving crime trends. You didn't have broken homes and families driving crime trends. You didn't have stereotypical feminine softness on crime driving crime trends. So you didn't have all of this crime created by feminism and women's empowerment, and so women didn't need the guns. And that's kind of what we need to go back to. Not the girls with guns thing, but a safer and more civilized society that is not ruled by destructive, dysgenic, degenerate feminine tendencies. And so, that's where we need to be aiming. This is not the ideal. The girls with guns thing is not the ideal. And making it as an ideal is just an attempt to concede to or compromise with feminism, which will ultimately fail, as all such attempts fail. And we need to be focusing on the bigger picture here, creating a fundamentally more orderly and sane and safe civilization and society. And so, for now, sure, give your girl a gun, help her practice with it, encourage her to carry it. But as a practical matter, women are more risk averse. They're less confrontational under most circumstances. Obviously, there are exceptions. If there are children involved, they can be very ferocious. But under most circumstances, women are more risk averse. They're more conciliatory. They're less confrontational. They're more conflict avoidant, right? So just as a practical matter, women are not going to carry guns to the same extent that men do. They're not going to own guns to the same extent that men do. They're not going to, practice with guns to the same extent as men do. So this is a non-solution, really, to these problems. And so, just let's cut it out. There's enough of this nonsense. It is not a good ideal. It's not healthy. We need to be aiming in another direction. And, men value guns not only for personal protection and protecting their loved ones, but also as a guarantor of their sovereignty, which is a reason that women don't share, because women are not sovereign. And they don't see guns as a guarantor or protector of their sovereignty in the way that men do. And men in America in particular. This doesn't necessarily apply in other countries. But that's a huge advantage and benefit to guns for men that women don't see or don't enjoy. And so, again, that's going to drive the rates at which men and women own or practice with or use guns. So, this is kind of a nonsense meme. Just cut it out. Hey guys, if you like the content, if you like the channel, subscribe, share below, support. I'll put the links in the description. Talk to you later.